The recording has started.
All right. Thank you. It is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024, for the monthly towing task force meeting. We'll go ahead and start with the roll call. We'll start with John Connolly. I do not see him yet. Captain John Hahn. He actually had indicated to us he wasn't going to be here, but he had appointed somebody to attend the meeting on his behalf, but I don't think they are here yet either. Jennifer Henson, I don't see her yet. Jim Howes, not him yet either. Mike Padilla, not seeing him yet. Craig Prunsky, don't see him. Mr. Charles Rich actually emailed me earlier this morning, said he wasn't going to be here. Jeffrey Reister, I believe I see you.
Present.
Yes, thank you. Nathan Riley, that's myself. I am present. Joyanne Rusha, I don't see her. Edward Schoenheit. I see you there. So you are here as well. And Isaiah Thomas.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So we got 4 members. Hopefully some more will trickle in. We'll go ahead and get started on the agenda and see how far we get. So we'll go ahead and start with a few administrative items. Let's see. Back to the OIT training that I know we brought up over the last several meetings. We did check the numbers on that. It looks like of the entire membership, we have 6 people that have completed it, and I think 7 have not. So thank you to those who have done that. If you haven't done that, like I said, please do that as soon as you can. You should have all the information you need to do it. And from the people who have taken it, who have gotten back to us with feedback, it's pretty simple to do. So, but yeah, please get to that as soon as you can. If you do have any questions, you can reach out to Hadija. She can help you. I think she's been reached out to by some of the other people who have been working on it. Okay, great. Thank you, Zaya. Appreciate it. But yeah, if you have any trouble, we're happy to help you and walk you through it and do what we can to make sure that gets done. So definitely appreciate you reaching out if you're having any issues. The first item on the agenda is, well, actually, going back to, oh, looks like we got someone else coming in, or we did a second ago. Going back to administrative items. Well, we see Ms. Henson is here. I'll go ahead and mark you as being here. Thank you for coming. So as I was saying, yeah, the OIT training, if you haven't done it yet, please get on that as soon as you can. Another administrative item I want to bring up, just kind of an FYI, our director, the director of the PUC, Rebecca White, she's planning to reach out to all the individual members to discuss the task force, where it is, where it's been, where it's going. Basically wants to share some ideas or concepts or whatever she can to kind of put some additional or fresh energy into the task force. So just FYI, that's something that's going to be coming here, I think, shortly, is my understanding. So just keep an eye out. I'm sure it'll probably come to your towing task force assigned email address, so you can keep an eye out for that message from her. I think she's been thinking about it a lot lately and kind of keeping an eye on this task force and what we're doing. And so I think she just had some feedback for us. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Moving on to our discussion items. First item is updates on the new Attorney General. And I think there was possibly even an update on some guidance we had asked for on the statutory amendments to 4010.1403, which is our governing statute that was implemented through House Bill 241051. Ms. Grooms, updates on any of that?
Hi there. For the foreseeable future, I will be representing the task force. I know there was some reshuffling there, and I know you really liked your past counsel, so hopefully I can live up to his standards. And as far as the updated statute goes, I am looking into that. It is an interesting situation, but um, just as a reminder for anyone, we're looking into the conflicts of interest provision that's been added when certain task force members may need to just step back and not vote on something and abstain. But I have reached out to a few other groups, and council represents groups similar who have a similar provision in their statute just to see how they're handling it. And I will hopefully get back to everyone and send out a memo by the end of next week.
Okay. Thank you for that update, and I'm sure we will like you as well. Yeah, we did like Mr. Roberts, and we're sorry that he's gone, but yeah, no, I'm sure you will be representing us with the same amount of vigor and creativity that we enjoyed with Mr. Roberts. So definitely appreciate that, and thanks for the update as well on that legal opinion. Again, I think we all mostly understand it, but just having something a little more concrete, just so we're all on the same page on that. We have had discussions ever since that passed through House Bill 241051, but yeah, just I think solidifying that and making sure we're all, as aware as possible on the boundaries on that is good. So I appreciate that. Okay, so moving on to our next discussion item, number 5, PUC rulemaking. So some of you may already be aware of this, especially our members who are part of the towing industry. But the passing of House Bill 241051 obviously led to some statutory amendments to Title 40, 10.1, the different towing codes that are present in that section, and obviously necessitated the need for a rulemaking for the commission to fully integrate these new statutory or updated statutory standards into the current rule framework that the commission has for the regulation of towing in Colorado. So PUC staff has been working since the passing of that bill to essentially take what was in those new and updated statutes and integrate them into the current rules under the 6500 series of commission rules for the towing industry, and has essentially put together a red line of all the changes that are intended to be made as a result of that legislation, and also a few little nitpicky things here and there. In addition to just the statutory changes. That got introduced before the commission last week. That would be it was a week ago today. That would have been on the 4th of September. The commission accepted what we refer to as a NOPR, a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. So it's essentially the kickoff of a rulemaking process. So that got accepted by the commission last Wednesday on September 4th. And the commission order actually initiating the rulemaking process got posted yesterday on the 10th. So it is officially moving. There is going to be quite a bit that is changing through that. Again, most of it's tied to that House bill. So there's that. But also, one of the things I thought which was worth noticing is that there were some suggested amendments, some proposed changes to Rule 6511, which is the commission's rule regarding the maximum rate, including for non-consensual tows. So there are some changes that could potentially apply to this group and what we have the power to make recommendations for. And in fact, I believe the NOPR even officially invited the towing task force to participate to the extent that we feel it's appropriate. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure to what extent this group may want to participate in the rulemaking. If we want to put together something to put into the record for the commission to consider, that's something we can take a look at. So just so everybody knows, the proceeding number for this rulemaking. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat here just so everybody can see it. So it's 24R-0382TO. So that is the proceeding that houses the rulemaking, and it will follow that track until it's over. So that's always the reference to the proceeding that will be the focus of that rulemaking. Just so everybody's aware, the public comment here. So when they initiate a rulemaking, they always schedule the initial public comment hearing. You have to have at least one usually. So that one has been scheduled for Monday, October 21st at 11 a.m. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat as well. Okay. So, and again, that's just the first one. There always can be multiple scheduled public comment hearings in any rulemaking the commission does. So just be aware of that, but that is the first one. So there is also a suggested time window to file written comments. I believe the deadline for the first one is, I want to say it's September 27th. Hold on, let me check that. Okay, I guess maybe I don't have that. Well, here, let me just look in the decision real quick. Yeah, so it was requested by the commission. You can file comments in these proceedings at any time, really, but for them to be, I guess, considered to the greatest amount possible by the judge that will preside over this proceeding and this rulemaking, they've requested written comments be filed no later than September 27th. That would be 2 weeks from Friday, this Friday. And then there's some extra time for people to file responses to any other comments that might get filed, which is October 11th, which I believe is 2 weeks after the initial comment deadline. And then again, the public comment hearing is a little less than 2 weeks after that, which is again that October 21st date. So just FYI, you know, we essentially have been given the green light to participate in the rulemaking to the great extent that we feel is appropriate. So just be aware of that. So yeah, Mr. Reeser, go ahead.
Thanks, Nate, and appreciate you flagging the opportunity to weigh in should the task force want to. I was just curious, what is the procedure for that? Like, is it a simple majority vote to say like this comment's going to advance? Is it are there any standards, whether that's like a DORA thing or like specific to the task force? That's something that we need to figure out before we submit things. I'm just curious if we do want to weigh in, how we would actually go about doing all of that.
Yeah, obviously the task force and, you know, more importantly, a quorum of the task force would have to all agree that, or at least to the appropriate figures, would have to agree that we wanted to put a specific comment together, what we would want that comment to say, and essentially all agree to go ahead and submit that into the record. If all of those criteria were met, it would be pretty simple for us to work with the commission to get that included in the proceeding. That's not the hard part. I think the hard part would be, you know, having us all agree to weigh in on a particular something, whatever that something is, and essentially all sign off on that to the extent where it would be a formal submission into the rulemaking record on behalf of the task force. So that I think is the bigger hurdle than actually getting it into the record.
Got it. Appreciate it.
Sure. So anyway, just so you can all be thinking about that. Again, I'm happy to try to pursue that to the greatest extent that we can. Again, you can file comments whenever in the proceeding, so I don't think there's a huge rush on this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than just a single public comment hearing on this one. Towing rulemakings tend to be a little more contentious than other types of rulemakings we do, and it's not unusual for there to be multiple public comment hearings. And I would say often they're separated by at least a month, give or take. So if the first one is scheduled for October, if there were to be a second one, it probably would be sometime in November, I'm guessing. So we have some time to kind of, I think, figure out what we might want to do, if anything. But yeah, anyway, just wanted to throw that out there because, again, it is a formal invitation from the commission to participate. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware that we had that on the table. So, all right, moving along with the discussion. Again, I know we had gotten into this a little bit last month, but timelines for rulemakings, we didn't really come to any formal conclusions, and we didn't have quorum last month anyway to even do that if we wanted to. But yeah, I think we had kind of, I think, more or less settled on trying to see if we could hold ourselves to, you know, put another report together like what we did back in 2022, but give us as much of it as a year to potentially do that. I do think, you know, some of the information that we can actually potentially utilize in the future is stuff the commission, I think, will be collecting and aggregating themselves. And actually, that's one of the things in this rulemaking that's attached, is something that was in the new statutory language in HB 24-1051, which essentially gave the commission leave to request information from the towing carriers, basically as a contingency of them having and keeping their permits. Whereby they would be submitting certain types of information, such as, you know, how many tow trucks they have, what categories of tows they're participating in, what their volume of tows are in those different categories, what they are charging for consensual tows. It's a lot of the same stuff that we put as questions in the survey that we did back in 2022. So I know that was one of our recommendations that we put forth in that 2022 report, was a suggestion to the commission that they may want to start collecting that information. And I think while the commission was kind of starting to make moves towards that anyway, it should be even more direct and more supported now, considering that the new statute, or one of the new statutes they added as part of HB 24-1051, and they actually added it within our own statute under the 403 statute, basically allows the commission to do that, I guess, in a more direct way. I think the commission probably had the authority to do it before that anyway. And again, the commission, I think, was taking steps to try to get there of its own accord. But now it's even more clearly outlined in the statute that is a capability and an authority that the commission has. And so obviously, considering they put it in a way that would make the submission of such information a contingency of a towing carrier having a permit or not, I think it's very likely we'll see a very high level of submission of that information. So I think that can be really helpful. And we're trying to the commission is trying to put plans in place to essentially coordinate that and make it, you know, an aggregation style process where this information is coming in from all these towing carriers and it's aggregated into commission records in a certain way that makes it a little more usable, I think. And I can't foresee a scenario where the commission would be unwilling to share that with the towing task force. In fact, I think they'd be eager to share that with the towing task force so that we can, I guess, do a better job at accomplishing our goals, such as getting a better, I guess, internal view of the landscape, what the towing industry is actually like, you know, scope, volume, all those types of things. So I think that will be helpful. Obviously, we will need the rules that just got kicked off yesterday. We'll need those rules to essentially become effective, I think, before the commission can start collecting that information. And obviously the rulemakings can take a while. So I think we're kind of in a wait and see mode with getting that information. But once we get it, I think it'll be very helpful to the commission and potentially to us as well, once we have access to that. So, but yeah, in regards to timelines for future reports, I do think that trying to put something down where we can point to a particular date that we would then strive to have a future report ready to submit to the commission by that date. I think that would be helpful. And again, I know there were a few comments in our last meeting when we talked about this who suggested that a year out would be an appropriate time frame and timeline to accomplish that. I don't necessarily disagree. I think that gives us time to do a variety of things. So that's something I know I would be comfortable with, but definitely open to additional discussion. I know I've been talking the whole time again, so feel free, anybody who wants to jump in. All right. So just so everybody's aware, I believe everybody was aware, based on previous meeting attendance, that we had the director of Copper, which is one of the divisions here at the Department of Regulatory Agencies, was because the towing task force was up for a sunset review. My understanding is most of the work has been done. We'll wait to see what the report says on whether or not the recommendation from Copper to the legislature will be to dissolve this group, or rather let it term out pursuant to the current statute, which I think has it going through, I think it's next year. Hold on. So pursuant to the current statute, so this would be 4010.1, 403, 4D2. Oh, no, sorry, that's the wrong one. Make that 4036, which would repeal the entire 403 statute effective September 1st, 2025. So just over a year from now. But again, that's the whole point of the sunset process, is so that they can essentially audit this group and others and other agencies and a variety of things, and then make recommendations to the legislature on whether or not to continue them. And so again, I think at this point we're just waiting. I think the review's been mostly completed, but I think we're just waiting to see what the recommendation will be. So that will determine if this body continues or if it doesn't. So just FYI, that's something that's going on in the background. So, but I'm sure we'll receive notice of that when that report gets posted, and I'm sure we will be sharing that with everybody when we hear something on it. So, all right, let's see. Okay. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts on timelines for future reports? I kind of like the idea of, us trying to put something together. I mean, I know 2 reports will be the same, and some may be more robust than others, but I kind of like the idea of us trying to put something together every year for the commission, or maybe not even just every year, maybe every year, 18 months, depends on what our progress is like. Just so we can continually be sharing, I guess, our thoughts and our perspectives, on things related to towing with the commission on a periodic basis. Because as of right now, the last thing they had from us was back in November of 2022. That's almost 2 years ago. So, and obviously we're not prepared to introduce anything new right now. So, it'll probably be a little while before they get another official formal report from us. But I don't know. What does everybody think about trying to put something like that in place? Obviously, it'll be of our own accord. We won't be technically bound to it, but we can at least strive to meet whatever we put in place. So does anybody else have any thoughts on that? You know, cadence, you know, what it would be to try to get, because I mean, otherwise really the only thing the commission and everybody else has access to is these meeting recordings, and they can kind of listen to what we're talking about. But without some kind of reporting mechanism, there's no, I guess, formal pronouncement of how we feel about things. So anyway, anybody else have any thoughts on that? All right. Let's go ahead, just so we don't have to do it later. Let's go ahead and schedule our next meeting. Again, I think we're sticking with that every second Wednesday of the month. That would put our next meeting on October 9th, unless anybody has any issues with that. Okay. So that would be, let's go ahead and keep it at 2 to 3:30. Khadija, do you want to note that, please?
October 9th.
Yeah, so that would be, yeah, Wednesday, October 9th, 2 p.m. 2 to 3:30 would be our next meeting. So if everybody wants to mark their calendars, that would be our next meeting. So going back to the discussion on the towing sunset and, you know, whether or not this is an important body to continue. Obviously, there's been legislation pertaining to towing 3 of the last 4 years. We had House Bill 21-1283 back in 2021. We had House Bill 22-1314 in 2022, and then most recently House Bill 24-1051 just earlier this year. So really, they did skip 2023, but I mean, it clearly sends a signal that it's still something that's on the legislature's mind from a policy perspective. I think they'd still like to see some improvements to the towing industry. We still get a lot of complaints at the PUC for towing related cases. It's still the bulk of our caseload for complaints and investigations. You know, we share big batches of information pursuant to the 403 statute, which gives us our authority. That statute also requires the commission to submit annual towing reports, essentially is what they are. You know, any and all things towing related to how the PUC regulates towing, like how many new permits we're issuing every year, you know, how many complaints we're working, how long it takes us to resolve them, what types of enforcement actions we're doing. You know, all these types of things goes into these reports. They're usually about, I don't know, 20 or so, 20 pages long for the report, and then an additional probably 20 or so pages, 20 to 25 pages of, you know, exhibits and printouts. So, and those are all available on the commission's website if anybody wants to look at them. I believe they're on the main towing website, if I recall. But anyway, they're there if anybody wants to read them. But yeah, I mean, it's clearly still a hot button issue, I think, here in Colorado. So I do think the work we do is important, and the discussions we have and the ideas we kind of go back and forth on. I think this is all still important work. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Sensen.
Just one thing is what
I do see that every rule that's passed, like throughout the years, every time that they come in and we make new rules and add more things, and then it goes out to the public, it seems to me that then we get more complaints. It kind of gives people ideas of why to complain, is what I've noticed. Just it since it puts it out to the public, they seem to, all non-consensual people who get their cars towed, throw all of those rules at you, even though you've followed all the rules. It just like, gives them excuses to kind of break rules. It's just an opinion. I just kind of wanted to put that out there.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I don't necessarily disagree. Yeah, and we see the same thing with statutes. So like, the two big bills they just passed back in 2022 and then again this year, that changed a lot of the Part 4 4010.1 codes for that specifically apply to towing carriers. Yeah, no, I do think that, when that's out there and people are aware of it, whether through, the press or, outreach that we do, a variety of different things. Yeah, sometimes we do see upticks in people, the volume of complaints. We saw that especially significant back in 2022 when they passed that bill. I'd say people were at least aware of the fact that it didn't take effect right away. We signed it in, I think it was May or June of that year. But as soon as the new statutes triggered in August, and by September, our incoming complaint volume went up like 300%. It was crazy. Right. And so now, were all of them legit? No, because people don't always understand what the new statutes actually do or what the new rules do when the commission puts them in effect. But yeah, it's something where the commission's always contending with. Is making sure people understand the changes, and it's not always in keeping with their presuppositions of what it actually is. So we dealt with that a lot back in 2022, and it's extended even to today in some cases. Sometimes people still, even 2+ years later, don't fully understand some of the mechanisms in the new statutes that went into effect back then. So yeah, go ahead.
A lot of them understand it at all. I think a lot of them just know bits and pieces, and then they just throw everything at you. And a lot of them think it's just a get out of jail free card, and that's just what it is. It's like, well, you can't tow my car. You don't have authority. See, the PUC says so. I'm writing a complaint. And that's just what they do, even though you try to explain to them, well, I did have authority. They posted a 24-hour notice. It says what it is, and you show them all the proofs, but they still make complaints. And then you guys reach out to us and say, what happened? And then we explain it too. But I think, a lot of them are just kind of, it's entitlement, and it's a kind of a get out of jail free card. And then, so the complaints are more, even though they're not all real complaints, really.
Sure. Well, and I think the commission, the system we have set up here for people to file complaints, which then can escalate into an investigation and potentially result in different type of for the consumer or enforcement action against the carrier, all these different things. I think the way we've set it up here at the commission is pretty good. We start off, it starts off at Consumer Affairs, which is our most facing group here at the PUC. So they're the ones who take all the initial complaints, not just about transportation, not just about towing, but about all things PUC. So, people make energy complaints, people make water complaints, people make, other types of fixed utility complaints, rail safety, gas pipeline. It's essentially the one-stop shop for anybody, any consumer or anyone really who wants to complain about anything that we regulate. So they take all those initial calls and emails and online submissions and essentially sort through it. And they know a lot about a lot of our rules for all these different industries that we regulate. But we work really, really closely with that group to make sure we're all on the same page, and they do an initial vetting. And there's plenty of cases that come in that get dismissed right out just because it doesn't meet the criteria. Maybe it's not jurisdictional to us, for example. They want to file a complaint against an interstate move. Well, we don't regulate interstate moves. We regulate intrastate moves. That's the difference. And so, we're good at getting them that information and kind of pointing them in the right direction. But then obviously if it escalates past that and it gets to people on the transportation team, the investigations and compliance unit, there's usually a pretty good reason for it to be there in the first place. So there's not a lot of, I guess I would call them frivolous complaints that get very far. Like the system we've set up is pretty good about filtering all those out. So anyway, that would be my comment to that. But again, we're always trying to, put stuff on our website or whatever that kind of puts the message out there better, so that we're not seeing a lot of those filings that we know aren't going to go anywhere. So
right. Yeah, I always talk to the same lady, and it's always the same thing. And it's always a pretty silly complaint. It doesn't really ever go anywhere. It just needs a response, since I respond with all my stuff, and that's usually the last I hear. So it's not a big deal. I just think it's the complaints I hear nowadays compared to the complaints I heard 5 years ago are just kind of silly, and very entitled.
Sure. Well, and again, there's nothing, to my knowledge, there's nothing that prohibits anyone from filing a complaint with our office for any reason. But then it's our job to sort out whether or not it's a legitimate concern or not, or something we can even do anything about. I actually had a call this morning from a gentleman, and he had an interstate issue, and I referred him to the right place. I said, it's not us, sorry, but we're pretty good at identifying those types of issues when they come up. So anyway, just so everybody knows. But yeah, no, I don't disagree with your point. When we have new statutes, when we have new rules, there's always inherently just a period of time where people maybe think it's going to be applied one way when it's not, or it says something that it doesn't. So, we do our best to try to make sure those are short-lived time periods where that's the case. But I mean, yeah, we do the best we can. I think we do a pretty good job most of the time. So anyway. All right. Did you have any other thoughts, Ms. Hanson?
No, that was it. I was just chiming in.
What about, how do you feel about the reporting idea? Any thoughts on that?
I think it would be good to report once a year. I think that's probably a good goal to keep. And okay. I'm still learning, so I have no clue what the last report was, or, I don't really know much, but I would definitely be willing to do some research and give my opinion. Yeah, I think reporting would be good. It would give us goals, and it would give us something to kind of do and report back to monthly.
Yeah, I just posted our website on there. It's our last report is on there. It's under, if you scroll down a little bit, there's some blue boxes where it has all our meeting recordings and our agendas and our minutes. But to the right of that, there's additional documentation, and the third bullet point down is the towing task force report. So that was our 2022 report. That's a copy right there. So if you want to look at it, that could be helpful. So. Yes. There's also member training, and then some of the other documents we use to put that report together is in there too. So like the survey we did, there's documentation on that in there. There's the results, some other things. So yeah, I like how transparent this group is. We put pretty much everything we do out there for everybody to see. So we got nothing to hide. So anyway, all right, cool. Let's see. Any other thoughts on the reporting? And again, it's not like, by December 1st every year we have to have something. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just something to keep us on track. And again, if like we're shooting to get something done in December, but it has to wait till the next February, okay, it's not the end of the world. We can just push it to February and make sure it's better to go in February than it would be if we rushed it in December, that kind of thing. So that's all I was putting out there. Is I think that's a good idea. And again, we can all keep an eye out for some of the ideas that's going to be shared with us from the PUC's director, because again, I think she's well aware of what our work has been since we kind of reformulated back in early 2022. So I think she's kind of kept an eye on what this group has looked like since then. So, but yeah, I think we should all keep an eye out for that and be receptive to anything they might suggest of our group. So, all right, let's see. I think that's all I had for today. So I think that. Oh yeah, Mr. Thomas, go ahead.
Quick question for you. Sorry, I may have missed this part. Did you say we have a quorum today?
We do not. Or hold on, let me just double check. I don't think we do, but hold on a second. We do not. We're actually quite a few short. So yeah, we do not quite have a quorum today. So no official decisions could be made. Can't approve the minutes. Nothing like that.
how many more people or open positions do we have on the task force that
Just one.
apply for? Just one.
Just
And
one.
it's same category as I am in disproportional communities, right?
That's correct. And in fact, I think we have a lead. We are still recruiting for that, but I think we have a lead on somebody who we might be able to put in that spot. So hopefully that'll get added here soon, is our hope. And of course, if anybody has any suggestions or someone you think of that might fill that final role, again, it's the same as Mr. Thomas's position, which is a member to represent communities that may be disproportionately affected by non-consensual towing, which includes communities of color, immigrant communities, elderly communities, and rural communities. So if you can think of anybody who you think might be able to fit into that role, I believe we have something up on our website, or on the Towing Task Force website that I just shared in the chat. If you go there, there's something at the bottom, and there's a link to the governor's office website where you apply to these types of positions. So if you can think of anybody and you think they might be okay, just refer them to our website and say, yeah, just follow the link there. And of course, Hadijah's contact information is there. If they want to reach out and ask her questions, she can also help with that. So if anybody has any ideas, please help, because yeah, it is admittedly pretty difficult to recruit for a lot of these positions. So anybody who has any ideas or people you think would be good, yeah, please refer them to our website to then link to the governor's office to apply. That would be much appreciated. All right. Okay, so I think that covers us items 1 through 6. Item 8 on the agenda is public comment. I don't think we had anybody sign up, and I'm not really seeing anybody in our group today that's unrelated to the task force. So I think it's just all of us and Hadijah and Ms. Grooms, and yeah, I don't think there's anybody here for public comment, so I think we can skip that. So number 7 is open discussion. Anything and everything anybody wants to talk about. So if you've had something come up in the last month that you think we all might want to hear, or fresh ideas you might want us all to start thinking about, anything in that vein, feel free to share that. Okay. All right. Like I said, from the PUC's perspective, again, I do think that towing is still a very big part of what we do, and it's still highly contentious. It has been, is currently, probably always will be. So we do our best to navigate that on a day-by-day basis. We're always looking for improvements to the industry. And I personally, I think, yeah, Ms. Henson, go ahead.
I did have one thing. I was reading that bill on that they just sent to all the towing companies that just passed. And it said on commercial private properties, it states it like that the first 24 hours, and then it says you can charge, you have to break it down into hourly on commercial, and then it says you can't charge until the letter is sent, and then it says like something about the hourly from the time the letter is sent on commercial PPIs now. Yeah,
so I think what you're referring to is the rulemaking where we reconfigured Rule 6511D.
I believe so.
Okay.
Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, of course. So, and really, I'd love to tell this to as many people as I can, because it is admittedly the restructured way that storage is charged for different types of tows is a lot more complicated than it was even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Prior to the legislation 2 years ago, we had a very straightforward way and consistent way of allowing towing carriers to assess storage charges. It was very straightforward. We handled it the same for a lot of types of tows. But essentially now what we've had to do based on the legislation 2 years ago and the different overlaying statutory changes that went through with House Bill 221314, is we essentially had to create what is essentially a 3-tiered storage system.
Right.
So the way it works for law enforcement ordered tows is essentially the way it was before 2 years ago, which is they can charge each full 24-hour period on the front end. So for example, they tow a vehicle, they place it in storage, and they can assess the entire first 24-hour period immediately upon putting that vehicle in storage. And whether the person shows up an hour later or 23 hours later, they pay that same amount for that entire first 24-hour period. And it's the same at every day rollover. So if they put it at if they put a vehicle in at 5 p.m. on a Friday, they can assess that first day's worth of storage at 5:01 or whenever they put the vehicle in storage, and then at 5 o'clock 5:01 on Saturday they can assess that second full day of storage, and essentially that's the way it works until they release the vehicle. So that's how it was for all different types of tows prior to 2 years ago,
Right.
And that's how it still is for law enforcement ordered tows now, because Bill 2 years ago didn't make any modifications to law enforcement ordered tows. It just didn't change them. So that's still the way it was before. So really, law enforcement ordered tows, the way you charge storage 5 years ago is the same way as you charge it today. Okay. So where the differences take hold is in regards to private property impounds, non-consensual tows from private property. So for commercial, and they're actually pretty similar. For a commercial private property impound, first of all, only the first 24 hours of storage can be assessed until statutory notification is completed. And that's based on a statutory change they made 2 years ago to 42.4/2103, that statute. And that's the statute that governs the statutory notification mechanism. So because of how they changed it, a towing carrier that engages in a commercial non-consensual tow from commercial property is basically can only charge the first 24 hours until they do statutory notification. So by way of example, say you have a vehicle towed as a commercial PPI, and they tow it and they put it in storage at 5 p.m. on a Friday. Okay. So if somebody comes and collects it before the first 24 hours has run out, the towing carrier is responsible for prorating that storage. So if they put it in storage at 5 p.m. and the person comes to collect it at 8 p.m., they can only charge for a prorated 3 hours worth of storage,
right,
for that 24-hour period. Now, assuming it doesn't get picked up in the first 24 hours, then it goes to, okay, when was the statutory notification completed? Let's say they put it in storage at 5 p.m. on a Friday, and they don't come to collect it by 5 p.m. on Saturday. So the first 24 hours has run. So what the towing carrier would do is put storage on pause after that 24-hour period has lapsed, that first 24-hour period, and then they start it up again once statutory notification has been completed. So whether that is the towing carrier runs the IDS search and then sends out letters because they got a local hit. Okay, once they send those letters out, okay, you start storage again and essentially treat it as a new starting point for your 24-hour rollover periods. Or you don't get a hit on the local, and so that automatically triggers the national through DMV. And they respond with information. You send out the letters. Okay, now that's when you start it, is when you get that, when you send those letters out in that certain scenario. Or a third scenario is you run the IDS search, no hits, that triggers the national, also no hits. So when you get notification from DMV that there was no hit on the national, that's your new starting period or restart for storage, essentially. Okay. Now, the trick with commercial is even though the first 24 hours is required to be prorated pursuant to the statute, after that, there's no specific restrictions after notification has been completed. So what we did was we essentially mirrored the law enforcement order tow concept, which again is the way it was for all tows prior to 2 years ago. So for a commercial tow, first 24 hours is prorated, storage is on pause until notification is completed. And once you restart it, you essentially follow the same mechanism as with law enforcement, where you charge the entire day's worth of storage on the front end until the vehicle's released.
And who has a computer system that can do that? I guess is my question. It's like, I get like what you're saying. And so I try and do, because that's how I understood it,
Mhm.
is I try and have my letter ready by that time that the vehicle came in, because my computer doesn't understand pause.
Okay.
So I try and, like, if I towed a car yesterday at 2, I try and make sure my letter is ready by the next day at 2 to go out, because otherwise my computer doesn't, and we run TowBook, which is what pretty much everybody runs. Computers don't understand pause. They don't get that. Like, how do you make that work on a computer system without any flaws? So I guess I understand that. I just don't know how anybody on the planet would make that work with dispatchers and employees and staff, unless all you do is answer your own phones and stand by your computer 100% of the time and have no staff to do anything for you.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think we were just trying to make it as simple as possible, or at least try to, in the places we could, keep it kind of the same way it was from before. But again, the statutes didn't allow us to do that in certain areas. So like, me personally, I prefer a more consistent way to do this.
Yeah.
But really, that's not possible anymore with the way the new statutes work. So essentially, this was the most user-friendly, if you even want to call it that, framework that we could come up with based on the statutes that were passed 2 years ago. So we're of course open to, fiddling with it, and obviously the new rulemaking that just started. If that's something you or other towing carriers want to bring up to maybe tweak it some more, as long as the way we're tweaking it doesn't conflict with the statute, I think we're happy to receive feedback from the towing industry on how this should work.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's tricky.
We have employees, and I think we try and, if you're trying to run a business, you're trying to run it as machinish as you can to make no flaws in the business, and that has to be software and orders in place that can make things run. And with that kind of system, you almost get a flaw somewhere daily, because we do our best not to flaw, but I couldn't guarantee that my dispatcher is going to say, oh, this is a commercial PPI and this is a residential, and then okay, it's 4 o'clock and they didn't come in until 5 o'clock, so I should need to do 23 hours and prorate that day and look at the letter. Like, they're not going to understand that because they're employees, and a lot of them don't understand law, and you explain things to them. And I guess too is, nor do they care as much as the owners or of like this, this board. So if they don't, you're supposed to care, but do they? And if you can have a flaw in the system, they're going to oopsie that all the time, because they're employees and they're not owners and they don't have any interest. So unless you can make it foolproof, it's going to mess up. So even though if I have to go on vacation, or right now I'm in my home office, I'm not in the yard office, which I have a new staff member in there because I lost one of my head manager last week. I had to let her go. So now I have a new person in my office. So things right now, as we speak, could be being messed up because I'm in a meeting. So I try to have it not. But what do you do about that? Like, what do you do? Like, so then if I have somebody who comes in to get something right now and he is manning the house for me and he messes it up, so then they go and complain to you. And then I guess it's kind of like it keeps me on a little bit of an edge because I don't really know where to go with that.
Sure. Well, and the commission staff can work with you on stuff like that. We can, have discussions about, okay, if this is your software limitation, maybe you could do this instead, or, configure it a certain way that captures this, that, or whatever.
Okay.
But it admittedly was a very tricky thing to try to put together,
right,
considering what the new statutes did. So, like I said, I think the commission did the best that they could to try to put something in place that was at least as easy to understand as possible. I know it's still not that easy because it's still a complex system, while at the same time making sure it was meeting the burden of complying with the different competing statutes that go along with that. So it was difficult to put that together, and to the point where people still weren't fully understanding it, which is why I think the commission is looking to maybe reconfigure that 6511D rule to kind of make it, I guess, easier to understand. It didn't really change what the mechanism is. It just kind of changed in rule the way it's described. That's really the only change it did. So it didn't modify the system that was put in place from the statutes 2 years ago, which
Right.
again went into rule in April of this year. So it's still all in rule, but we're clearly open to modifying it to whatever way we can. That's easier for the industry to understand and implement, while at the same time not conflicting with the statute. And we're absolutely open to having those conversations.
And is the only thing is different, just in my understanding, between a residential PPI and a commercial is really the 24 hours after. You don't prorate the commercial after you sent the letter, but you prorate the residential after you sent the letter. So it's really the only difference is the tail end. Okay.
Correct. Now, if it's easier on the industry to make those consistent, where you just prorate everything for both commercial and residential, I think we could explore that. But I don't know if that would necessarily cure the kind of stuff you're talking about. It sounds like your biggest it sounds like your biggest issue is the pause aspect of it.
Well, and it doesn't prorate either. Like you can't do a 24-hour period and then on the last day prorate, like and Tobook just doesn't do that. So, and I have reached out to Tobook, and they are in the works of fixing some things and putting some new implements in. But that could be a while. But you can't do. You either have to do a 24-hour system. That's really all they offer, or you switch over at midnight. So that's either 24 hours or a midnight changeover. They don't offer anything else. So to get to it, that's just how it is. So you have to get your dispatcher or whoever's releasing vehicles to add up $1.92. So I do have a button in Tobook where I go and put hourly rates instead of the storage hourly, and it's $1.92 an hour. And I'll put in 20 hours. So I'll base the last day onto an hourly button instead. So I've kind of modified it my own, but not that makes it any easier for dispatchers or people releasing vehicles, unless they understand it as I do.
Got it. Okay. Well, yeah. And I commend you on reaching out to Tobooks and working with your software developers to try to figure this out. It's admittedly something I don't really see changing, or at least not the undergirding statutes that prop this up. So I'm guessing we're always going to, at least for the foreseeable future, we're going to be contained within the statutory limitations of what it is.
Right. I just want to make sure I understood it. So I know if I'm asking Tobook to fix it, then I know I'm asking them to fix it in a direction that I'm supposed to be going, I guess. Yes. Okay.
Sure. Well, but and again, I commend you for being proactive with this and trying to create workarounds and stuff to be in compliance, and that's a big deal, and you should be lauded for that. But anyway, just I mean, we're open to having these discussions with tow carriers, but yeah, I think you are correct that the biggest difference between a commercial and a residential PPI, while they both have to prorate the first 24 hours, the big difference is after the notification is completed and you start charging storage again. For commercial, you charge the full day on the front end, just like law enforcement. Whereas for residential, you continue to do it prorated through the life of the tow.
Right.
That's the big difference. So,
Thank
but
you.
yeah, no, I'm glad you understand that. So, okay. And again, we're trying to get this out there and describe it in simpler ways so people can wrap their head around it, because it is complicated.
It's really confusing.
So, but it's inherently complicated because of what we're using, or what the statutory obligations are. So, all right, fair enough. I'm glad we had that conversation, because we're trying to get that information out as many places as we can. So, and it's been difficult. So, all right. Looks like Khadija has scheduled our next meeting. Like I said, it's going to be Wednesday, October 9th, 2 p.m. So you can look out for that invite. We'll go ahead and send out reminder notices leading up to that meeting like we have been lately. Hopefully those have been helpful for everybody to kind of know when these meetings are coming. But yeah, I think that's all we had for today. Any other last minute thoughts or comments or concerns before we wrap up today? All right. Hearing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the day. It is 3:05 p.m. And again, our next meeting is scheduled for October 9th at 2 p.m. See everybody then. Thank you. Have a nice day.